Sorry for being late, everyone. Really good to be here. Yesterday, I announced that the government will table the fall economic statement on Monday, December 16th, in the House of Commons. Our government is focused on building 4 million more homes, making life more affordable, and growing the economy and creating more good-paying jobs. And we're doing this in a fiscally responsible way. Canada's net debt to GDP and deficit to GDP ratios are the lowest in the G7. In next week's fall economic statement, you will see that the government is maintaining its fiscal anchor, specifically reducing the federal debt as a share of the economy over the medium term. I expect that the debt to GDP ratio we projected in the spring budget for the fiscal year 23-24 will be met. Le ratio de la net dette au
The net debt to GDP ratio and the deficit GDP ratio are the lowest in the G7. In the fall economic update to be tabled next week, you will see that the government is maintaining its fiscal anchor. More specifically, reduction of the federal debt as a proportion of the economy over the medium term. To answer questions that have come up lately, I can state that I expect that the debt GDP ratio projected in the spring budget for fiscal year 2023-2024 will be met. Regarding the Canadian economy now, we have good news regarding inflation. In October, inflation was at 2.2%. This means that inflation, it remains within the target range and has remained there for 10 months, the entire year. Interest rates have been falling. Canada was the first country in the G7 to reduce our interest rate on 4 occasions. We are making progress, but there remains lots to do. We are investing in Canadians with the money Canadians need.
To the announcement that Sean and I are here to make today, something that will be detailed on Monday. We are making it easier for homeowners to add secondary suites, rental apartments, in-law suites, laneway homes. So today we're announcing that we are doubling the loan limit for the Canada Secondary Suite Loan Program to $80,000. This program offers 15-year loan terms at just 2%. That makes it easier for homeowners to add a secondary suite. It's going to be administered by CMHC, and it will launch in early 2025. It builds on existing measures in place, allowing homeowners to refinance their mortgage to help cover the cost of adding a secondary suite. Borrowers can access up to 90% of the post-renovation home value, up to $2 million, amortized over a period of up to 30 years. And that starts on January 15th, 2025. So homeowners will be able to use both the loan program and will have access to mortgage refinancing. Together, these two measures will make it easier for homeowners to build a secondary suite. This is about increasing the housing supply. It is about gentle density, and it is about giving Canadian homeowners the tools themselves to help build more of the homes that Canadians need. Now I'll pass it over to Minister Fraser. Sean.
Excellent. Merci tout le monde.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity to talk about a major and very useful measure.
Really cool buildings that I'm starting to see pop up right across the country. Where I tend to see the most when I'm visiting communities who've embraced unique solutions to the housing crisis is when families are trying to find a home for aging parents who have unique accessibility needs, for families who have a student who wants to live nearby if they're going to college or university, or for people who are looking to earn a little bit extra income on the side. I visited not too long ago a family in my own community. It was Art and Joan in Hammonds Plains. They've been living in my own province, rather. They've been living in the same neighborhood for 57 years, where they raised their own family. Joan ran into certain concerns that required more accessible upgrades to their home in order to continue to live in the community where they want it to remain. Over the years, their daughter Deborah, now an adult, decided to raise her own family just down the street, literally. And when they were looking for that more accessible option, they actually approached their daughter Deborah and said, "Is there any chance we could actually build a spot in your backyard?" And that's exactly what they've done. They worked with a company called Sprout, based in Nova Scotia, who's manufacturing these backyard suites or accessory dwelling units, if you'll use the lingo. And what they ended up with is a beautiful space, looks off onto a little forested area, literally steps away from their daughter, in the same neighborhood where they grew up. What you see is an energy-efficient design that keeps the monthly costs low. It has all the accessibility features they need. And what's most important for them is they get to be close to their daughter and to her family. What's interesting is the opportunity not only to be next to their grandkids in their neighborhood, is the house down the street has been freed up for another family to move in. When you see this additional supply added, it creates a cascading effect that frees up more existing housing stock for families to move into communities where the stock already exists. If you add a fairly quick construction methodology with these new kinds of buildings. The change today is really important because it reflects feedback that we've heard from stakeholders out there who are in the business of building these things, including families who want to add a new building to their property to provide housing for typically a loved one, but not necessarily. What's important about this change is when you increase the loan limit at 2% to $80,000, you layer on top of it programs that may exist at a provincial level. Like in my home province, there's a forgivable loan of $40,000, and the changes that allow you to refinance up to 90% of the value for a 30-year term. The upfront cost is no longer a barrier to a lot of families because the different tools that have been made available allow you to actually embrace this solution for yourself. What's unique about this particular policy compared to many others is that a lot of the measures that we put in place with the housing plan last year were focused on providing incentives to big institutional builders to build much more quickly. Today we're creating opportunities for ordinary families, middle-class families, to be part of the solution as well by building more housing stock on properties that they already own and freeing up the stock that exists in the community should a family move into a backyard suite, a garden suite, a basement suite. This is a unique opportunity for ordinary Canadians to be part of the solution to the housing crisis, and I'm looking forward to seeing more businesses pop up across Canada who are engaged in the manufacture of these kinds of homes, which can be built far more quickly than a traditional construction methodology for a full-size home. This is an exciting product, and I'm looking forward to rolling it out because I think it's going to add potentially tens of thousands of units to the national housing supply over the next number of years. Thanks so much. Happy to take what questions you may have.
All right, thank you, ministers. We'll pass it over to the floor. We'll start with Promeet from Reuters.
Thanks, Rachel. Good morning, ministers. On the fall economic statement, will there be spending measures that will require a vote in the House of Commons?
Thanks for the question. I am not going today to say more about what will be in the fall economic statement. It will be presented in the House on Monday.
Okay. Second question. You said that the debt to GDP ratio for last year for 2023-24 will be met. Will you also be able to keep the deficit below $40.1 billion as projected?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I chose my words with care because it is important to be clear with Canadians. It is important to be clear with capital markets. So I do expect that when we table the fall economic statement on Monday, the debt to GDP ratio for 23-24, which we put forward in the 24 budget, will be met.
Thank you. We'll go to Chrystia Noel from SRC.
I don't think so about that because there's already rumors saying they're already past that they're at 40 billion. Or 60 billion, sorry, and are supposed to go to 40, so let's see what happens.
Bonjour, Madame Freeland. Good morning. I'd like to talk about the tension between the Prime Minister's office and your office regarding the fall economic update. Tensions happen sometimes between finance ministers and prime ministers, but in this case, how did it affect the timing and the content of the fall economic update? Thank you for that question. For me, it is a great privilege to serve Canadians as finance minister and as Deputy Prime Minister in the office of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Every day, I feel awareness of this great privilege. I am also grateful. I recognize that Canadians today are facing major challenges, both domestically and internationally. I am focused on challenges faced by Canadians. I am focused on my work to serve the Canadian public. I am not focused on political squabbles. Question: the $250 checks. It seems that you're having trouble getting agreement from opposition parties. Is that measure dead on the table? As you know, we are in a minority position in Parliament. We have proposed measures to help Canadians. One of those measures, the GST holiday, has been supported by an opposition party. The other measure is not yet supported by opposition parties. We will continue to work on this, but this is a minority parliament, and we do need support for the measures that we propose.
You could take my $250 and you can give it to the homeless, you can give it to the vets, you can give it to the people that actually need it. It's only for the working people. Well, you can give my money to somebody else that actually needs it.
Hi, Minister Freeland. I just want to make sure I understood what you said at the opening. So you talked about the debt to GDP ratio, but part of that fiscal anchor as well was keeping the deficit last year at or below $40.1 billion. And as you know, the PBO and many economists we've talked to believe that you exceeded that when we see the final numbers. Did you say that you expect you will hit that point of the fiscal anchor as well, that last year's deficit was at or below 40.1?
Thank you for the precision in your question, Brian. And I chose my words also precisely. So let me sort of restate for clarity. Our fiscal anchor is the debt to GDP ratio and a declining debt to GDP ratio. And that is so critical because that is really a way of saying our public finances are sustainable. If your debt is declining as a share of the economy, by definition, your fiscal position is sustainable, and that is really important. I expect that when I table the numbers on Monday, I will show that the debt to GDP ratio, which we forecast in the 2024 budget for the 23-24 fiscal year, will be met.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be more.
Okay, thank you. Yesterday, the Prime Minister talked about something that you've also talked about, which is how Canada had to respond the last time Donald Trump put in tariffs, that there was carefully targeted tariffs, and we went dollar for dollar, and it worked eventually to negotiate a solution. What Donald Trump's talking about now are economy-wide tariffs. Do you expect that that might require a different response from Canada than how it responded the last time when you only had the steel and aluminum tariffs in place?
So the Prime Minister was really clear yesterday. He said that, of course, Canada would respond to unjustified tariffs. Our focus is on achieving a win-win outcome. And our focus is on really explaining to our American partners, our American neighbors, that the trading relationship with Canada is balanced and mutually beneficial. And it's a very special relationship because Canada is the largest market for the US. We are a bigger export market for the United States than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. That puts us in a really special position. And of course, Canada supplies to the United States things America absolutely critically needs: oil, electricity, uranium, critical minerals and metals. So we believe that this is a mutually beneficial, balanced, and win-win trading relationship. And we're taking the time to explain and to...
How is this a win-win? We got 25% tariffs on us. This ain't no win-win. Either close the borders and stop the drugs coming in, or call a fucking election now.
Our American partners that is the case. As the Prime Minister said, we have had in the past experiences with unjustified tariffs from the United States. The experience in 2018 was that Canadian retaliation ultimately worked. And it worked because of our importance to the United States as an economic partner. For sure, Canada depends on the United States and benefits from our economic relationship with the United States. But it's also true that the United States benefits from its relationship on us. And that win-win, balanced, mutually beneficial relationship is what we are focused on.
All right, Jordan from the Financial Post.
Morning. Does your government still think it's important to shrink the federal deficit?
I was careful and precise in my comments about the debt to GDP ratio. Maintaining a declining debt to GDP ratio is our fiscal anchor. That is important. That is how we maintain sustainable public finances. When it comes to the deficit, Canada has the lowest debt to GDP ratio and the lowest deficit in the G7, and that's important too.
Just on the Trump tariff front, have you had any conversation? Just an update. Have you had any conversations with your American counterparts related to this in recent weeks? What are you telling them?
I and ministers and premiers and business leaders and union leaders are talking a lot with our American partners. And I do actually want to take a moment to thank all of the premiers, to thank all of the business leaders, to thank all of the union leaders who are really energetically reaching out to their American partners. I've actually been really delighted by, grateful for, and moved by the energy with which Canadians have responded to this and have been working hard on this. And people have been sending me updates of their meetings, unsolicited updates. My ministerial colleagues have also been out there having many, many conversations. So a lot of work is being done right now. And our message is really transparent and it's clear. It's exactly what I said in response to Brian's question, that we have a balanced, mutually beneficial economic relationship. It is a win-win right now, and it is important. Americans don't wake up in the morning and think about Canada. That's okay. And so this is a good opportunity for us to remind our neighbors that...
Like, honestly, does anybody even think about Canada anymore? Look at our country. Why would they think about us? Look who's in charge.
And as we get a lot of benefit as Canadians from our economic relationship with the United States.
They recognize us, but they recognize us as a joke because of our freaking government that's in charge.
They benefit from their relationship with us. We are a really big market for them. We are bigger than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. That is a lot. And we supply to the United States things America critically needs: oil, electricity, uranium, critical minerals. And so that is the case that we're making right now.
Marika Walsh from the Globe and Mail.
Good morning, Ms. Freeland.
And she's so happy about that answer. Like, fuck, she's retarded. Just fucking resign.
today you're very clearly signaling that you will not meet one of your three deficit guideposts, as you called them, or fiscal guideposts, as you called it in the spring budget. In the spring budget speech, you said it was responsible to have very specific, fiscal guideposts, including limiting the deficit to 40.1 billion or lower. So are you saying you're now comfortable going past that?
So I am not going to comment on anonymous rumors that are out there in the town right now. No, I'm not going to comment on anonymous rumors that are out there in the town.
Well, then tell us what the number is. I guarantee it's over 60 billion. You fuckers can't do anything under fucking 40 billion, not even.
Offered something very clear information on what I expect when it comes to the debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio is our fiscal anchor. That is it's not just the guarantee of fiscal sustainability, that is fiscal sustainability. And it was important for me to be clear about that today. The other thing that I do want to say is from the time that following the COVID recession, Canada experienced global inflation and the high interest rates which followed, our government's focus has been on supporting the Bank of Canada in getting inflation down and then interest rates down. And so the fact that that inflation has been within the Bank of Canada's target range for all of this year is material. I'm going to quote the governor of the Bank of Canada from an appearance in the Senate Banking Committee in October when he said, "We're no longer trying to get inflation down. Government spending is not pushing against us getting inflation down. We've got it down." So that is also a really important fact about where the Canadian economy is right now.
Can you explain to Canadians, voters, and the financial markets what it means for the government to set a fiscal target if it is going to continually change them or ignore them when they no longer are sufficient in your view or no longer meet your spending needs? What is the point of what you say in April if it changes by November, December? And what consequence should you or the government face for not meeting these goals that you yourself set?
I think actually I've been saying exactly the opposite of where your question is driving. What I've said today, precisely and with care, is that when we table the numbers on Monday, we expect that the debt to GDP ratio for 23-24, which we set out in the 2024 budget, will be met. And that is important because the fiscal anchor is a declining debt to GDP ratio. And that is important because a declining debt to GDP ratio means your public finances are fiscally sustainable.
All right, we'll go to Najud from the Canadian Press.
Hi, Minister. I'm wondering if the government is going to factor in the risk of tariffs in the fall economic statement.
We definitely recognize that we are facing challenges and also opportunities following the U.S. election. I think all Canadians recognize that. We're very focused on that. We're working hard on it. And of course, the fall economic statement will take that into account.
Thank you. You're facing pressure, obviously, from economists, business groups, et cetera, on the deficit. You're also facing pressure politically and from Canadians to give help on affordability. As a finance minister, how do you balance both of those things?
Just get up in the morning and try to do my job as best I can. And also try to talk to people. My job, Sean's job, it's to serve Canadians. And I think we do our job best when we talk to Canadians, listen to them.
Well, you're clearly not talking to the right ones, bud. If you were, you would not be putting this shit on us. Talk to a real Canadian. Don't talk to the immigrants. Talk to a real fucking Canadian. Talk to me. I'll tell you. axe the carbon tax. Build more homes, give people food. That's what we need. Go talk to a real fucking Canadian, not the immigrants coming in.
Thanks. We'll go to Mackenzie Gray from Global News.
Hi, Minister. Donald Trump this morning posted that he had a nice dinner with Justin Trudeau from the great state of Canada. On Meet the Press this weekend, he also bandied about the same idea that Canada could join the U.S. How do you plan to negotiate with someone who doesn't seem to be taking Canada seriously right now?
I am really clear about Canada. I know how lucky I am to be Canadian. I know what a great country we live in.
Then why are you fucking it up?
And without, being appropriately Canadian, nice to other countries, I want to say Canada is the greatest country in the world. I'm very clear on that. All of us are very clear on that.
But yet you're fucking it up. How are we the best country if you're fucking Canada up and Canadians homeless, no food, no houses, people using fucking food banks? You're really proud of yourself, aren't you? Just fucking resign. Sorry everybody for swearing, I'm pissed. This is the stupidest answer of my life.
Mr. Trump brought this up at the dinner with the Prime Minister. He's now subsequently made references to this 3 times. Do you think he's actually serious about this idea of Canada joining the U.S.?
Mackenzie, that is a question really for the president-elect.
Are you serious?
I'm going to leave it at that.
You serious? You're not even wow.
We'll go to Boris from Le Devoir.
Madame la Ministre, la mise à jour.
Question. Minister, the economic update will be tabled very late, in just 24 hours before the winter break. Conservatives are accusing you of being cynical by setting the date so late. Why are you tabling the update so late? Answer. It's the opposition that's cynical. It is entirely cynical to paralyze and filibuster the House of Commons in Parliament for over 2 months. When there is a filibuster, obviously, it makes it difficult to carry out the ordinary work of government. That's what the reality is. Question. The capital gains tax increase. Have you found a way to get it done by the end of the year? That is next week? Are you expecting a vote on that? Answer. As I have already noted, given the cynical filibuster from the Conservative side, Parliament is unable to get its work done. They are preventing our democratically elected officials from doing their work. And with their obstruction, it takes more time to carry out necessary measures. But we absolutely have the intention to continue putting forth necessary measures.
Who's in charge? The Liberals are in charge. Why are you blaming on the fucking Conservatives? It's yous that are making our country go to shit. Enough is enough. Call a carbon election now.
Good morning. I'm just wondering, do you think that the president-elect is trolling the federal government?
I truly am going to urge everyone who has questions to the president-elect to pose those to him. What I am going to say is I'm going to speak for myself and I'm going to speak for Canada.
Oh,
and I'm going to say something that I think we all believe and recognize. We are so lucky to be Canadian. I am so proud of our country. I am so proud of the true north, strong and free. And I also want to say to Canadians that our government is absolutely determined to defend the national interest. We will do so. Our principle during the NAFTA negotiations was that we did not escalate and that we also did not back down. I think that is a very Canadian approach, and it's an approach that works.
My second question is similar to one of my colleagues. Yesterday, when the Prime Minister mentioned retaliatory tariffs, he referenced what happened with the steel and aluminum in 2018. I'm just wondering, in the face of blanket tariffs, what could Canada do concretely in the face of that? What are some examples of something that Canada could do?
I'll give you one right now. Election.
To retaliate to that.
Okay. Thanks for the question. The Prime Minister was very clear yesterday, and he chose his words with care. He said that, of course, Canada would respond to unjustified tariffs. Our conviction is that Canada and the United States today enjoy a win-win, mutually beneficial, balanced economic relationship. That is just the reality. And the reality is it is a relationship that, yes, from which Canada benefits for sure, but it is also a relationship that is good for the United States. They sell stuff to us. We are the largest market for the United States by far, bigger than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. That is significant. And it's also significant that they get stuff from us that they need. They get oil from us, they get electricity, they get uranium, they get critical minerals and metals. And I am absolutely convinced that the economic realities of that relationship, the economic reality of a win-win relationship, will ultimately prevail.
All right, we'll go to Mena from CTV.
So you're saying you'll meet the debt to GDP, but you're signaling that you won't meet the 40% target. If that's the case and the debt to GDP is more important, why did you put it in the first place? And what does that mean for Canadians that trusted the government to meet a certain target that doesn't seem to be met?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think I've answered it. I've been precise and chosen my words with care on the debt to GDP ratio, which I expect we will show for 23-24 in the fall economic statement on Monday. I'm focused on that because that is the ratio which is our fiscal anchor, and a declining debt to GDP ratio is the guarantee of, it is the numerical statement of Canada's fiscal sustainability. And that's what's important, is having sustainable public finances. We do, and the numbers that I present on Monday will elaborate on that.
My other question is with the PBO estimating that the tax holiday break is going to cost, and it could cost an additional $1.3 billion for the government if they decide to reimburse the provinces that want to take part in this. What are you doing about that? Are you planning on reimbursing the provinces, or are you talking to them about just dealing with the losses?
We've been having really good conversations with the provinces, and what we've been saying is we think this measure is good for all Canadians. And so we have been encouraging provinces to step up and to offer this affordability measure to the people in their own province, that the federal government is doing its share, and we're encouraging provinces to do their share as well. And you've heard public statements from provinces saying, yeah, we get it, and we're focused on affordability too, and we're going to join the federal government in putting forward this measure.
All right, we'll go very quickly to Marco for our last questions in the room.
Thanks, Mr. Freeland and Mr. Fraser. I'd like to get your comments on this. Pierre Poilievre proposed cutting the GST on new home sales up to, I believe, $1 million. The current exemption, it's a gradual scale, goes up to $500,000, and you do not get reimbursed after that point. Obviously, home sales have skyrocketed in value. It's kind of been the reason that you two have pointed to in terms of increasing the maximum insured rate for mortgages. Why not increase that percentage when it comes, the value of a home that you can get your reimbursement on the GST like Mr. Poilievre is proposing?
Look, thanks very much, and I never want to take different potential solutions off the table when it comes to what we may do next to help build more homes and help deliver affordability. When you look at the role that the tax system can play in helping drive supply, we can point to the fact that we've removed the GST on purpose-built rentals and seen almost immediately an increase in the number of apartments that were being constructed. A lot of projects that were on the bubble ended up penciling out and going ahead as a result of that change. When you do look at a multi-billion-dollar investment, you want to make sure you have the details right. You want to make sure that you're not simply creating a scenario that's going to allow, for example, an investor class to buy up supply that's not going to actually be providing housing for Canadians. You want to ask yourself who's actually going to be benefiting from these different policies, and is putting money in one particular strategy going to be more advantageous than doing it a different way. So that's the kind of assessment that we conduct anytime we consider different or unique housing proposals, including the role that GST may play. We don't want to, for example, pull potential capital out of a solution that could be building 4 units on a given property and instead have it go to a single home that's worth more in value but provides fewer homes to the overall supply. So these are the kinds of assessments that we conduct routinely to understand the impact that different measures would have. And as we look forward to introducing further measures to build more homes, we'll be comparing proposals around the tax system as compared to the output that we think different measures with the same capital could potentially have.
And my last question, I know everyone's been trying to get you on this issue when it comes to the $40.1 billion target. If we're reading between the lines, it does seem like you're suggesting that the economy is doing better than first anticipated when that number came forward, and that number is no longer the target that you'd be aiming for because the growth is now greater than the. So considering that StatsCan made a huge revision to its economic growth numbers, how confident are you that when in the document that you table on Monday that those growth numbers are going to be helpful in terms of setting a figure that Canada shouldn't exceed or can't exceed to hit your debt to GDP targets?
Thank you for the question. I did choose my words with care because Canada's fiscal sustainability is rightly something Canadians are concerned about. And it's something our government is concerned about. It was important for us to hear from the Parliamentary Budget Officer over the summer that he judged Canada's public finances to be sustainable over the long term. That was an important, objective, and independent judgment. The reality, the fact that drives that fiscal sustainability is the debt to GDP ratio and whether or not it is declining. And so that's why I thought it was important today to offer the precision and the clarity that I expect when I table the fall economic statement on Monday. I will show a debt to GDP ratio for 23-24, which is consistent with the debt to GDP ratio that we forecast in the 2024 budget. I do think that is an important number for Canadians. That is our fiscal anchor. And I did think, given some of the rumors that are swirling around, that it was important for me to offer that clarity today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ministers.